right, so I'm just going to share this. Okay, so let me make this bigger. Hopefully you can still see me on the side, and you can see the document, the blood deficiency document. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so how to treat symptoms of blood deficiency according to Chinese traditional medicine. And this is kind of like nutrition therapy as well, because I'm going to have a recipe at the end as well. But I'll talk first a little bit about the etiology of blood deficiency. So blood deficiency in Chinese medicine is considered a pattern of disharmony. And with all patterns of disharmony in Chinese medicine, we can treat those patterns with acupuncture and herbs. And the patterns, we're using that word pattern because there's a specific, there are specific symptoms that you have that can lead you to the diagnosis of blood deficiency. And there's hundreds of patterns. So we're just going to talk about one, and blood. So blood is formed by the spleen in Chinese medicine and is given the vitality of yin by the kidneys, and yang by the substances. So there's like the yin and yang aspect of everything in life, you know, from a grain of sand all the way to an oak tree. There's yin and there's yang. And so when we're talking about blood, there's that aspect as well. So the spleen is important, and then the liver stores blood, especially when we go to sleep. And that concept is the same in Western medicine as well. So when we sleep, our blood is collected back at the liver, and that's where it actually can do its thing, where it kills a lot of the bacteria and it processes toxins and all that. That's why the liver is so important for blood. And therefore, a dysfunction in the spleen and the stomach is also important. The liver and the kidneys can cause blood deficiency. And unfortunately, blood deficiency is a lot more common in women than men because we have a monthly cycle. Most of women have monthly cycles. We're losing blood. If you donate blood, you may also have some deficiency if you do it too often. And birth, for women, again, giving birth, you may lose a lot of blood as well. So after birth, most women may feel some of the symptoms of blood deficiency, which I'll talk about. I personally did as well. That's kind of one of the reasons why I was just like, oh, blood deficiency, that's like my thing. I'm feeling it. Yeah, so I want to talk about it and share what we can do to help that. It also can be caused by malnutrition, so poor absorption of nutrients. So people, they have like leaky gut syndrome or IBS, Crohn's disease, celiac disease, those types of issues with the gut not absorbing nutrients. You may also have some deficiency because when taking in food, the spleen and the stomach really work hard to process that food and turn it really into blood. So, you know, if they can't do their job and the gut is not absorbing, then you'll have some issues. A diet that's high in bitter foods, spicy foods, hot foods like coffee, alcohol, dark chocolate usually, black tea, those are very drying and damaging to the blood. So they damage kind of the fluids or substances. Too much, of course, everything in moderation, fine, right? But if it's too much, then that may be damaging. So when it comes to symptoms of blood deficiency, your acupuncturist can identify and use those symptoms to elucidate and treat the root cause of the blood deficiency. So there may be many different reasons that you're experiencing these. So, and then between appointments for your acupuncturist, if you're interested in trying acupuncture, you can support your blood by reducing stress with exercise, of course, meditation. There's great Qigong movements. Maybe if you guys will have me back on, maybe I'll do some Qigong. That'll be fun. Be sure to eat slowly, eat a rainbow of foods. And I have a food chart at the bottom of this document. Don't eat too late at night. Really, the cutoff is like 7 p.m. if you're going to bed like 11 or so, or 10 or 11. And eat with people that you love, like really, or if you're by yourself, you know, really take the time to like sit and be calm while you eat. So that your body can absorb those nutrients and you can really get the most out of your foods and create really healthy blood. And then I have a meal plan at the bottom here, but I first want to talk about like the symptoms of blood deficiency because there's different different symptom categories. We have a physical, mental or emotional, and a spiritual aspect to blood. Symptoms such as blurred vision, ringing in the ears, pale and dull, sallow face, tremors in the limbs. So tremors meaning also tingling or numbness in the limbs or hands. That can be a physical symptom of blood deficiency. Scanty menses, so not bleeding a lot. You're holding on actually to the blood, so you don't have enough blood to actually bleed during the menstrual cycle with a normal amount. That was something I had a big issue with after giving birth. I didn't start my period back until almost 18 months, 12 to 18 months later. So that's because I was blood deficient for a very long time and my body was not didn't have enough blood to bleed. So,
Yeah.
So it's interesting how your body really knows what's going on and is doing what is best for you, is keeping you healthy. Hair loss is also a symptom. Emotional and mental things like insomnia, poor memory and concentration, excessive dreaming, depression. And depression and anxiety are, such broad terms. You talk to your acupuncturist or you talk to a therapist, they're going to have to narrow that down to how you experience those type of symptoms. And then spiritual things, dull eyes, delusions, like dull eye just meaning not having like a real, like we call it shen in Chinese medicine, S-H-E-N. And just not having like this brightness to your eyes, kind of having that sallowness in your eyes. Mm-hmm. Delusions, lack of manifestation of your heart's desire, unease when you're alone. So like the blood also, and I'll go right back over here to this right side, mm-hmm. the functions of blood to nourish, let's move that over a little bit, to nourish the body. Blood nourishes the body, which is also the same as in Western medicine, right? Mm-hmm. Blood moistens the tissues, the eyes, the skin, the hair, and nourishes the tongue. So the tongue is really important in Chinese medicine. You probably, if you've seen an acupuncturist, they've always asked you to show them your tongue. So when you see a tongue that's very pale, that's dry, that often means that there is some blood deficiency, because the tongue will be more red or pinkish if there's blood that's actually available. But then here, this one's really important too, anchoring. The blood provides the material foundation of consciousness. It houses and anchors the mind. Okay, so we think about blood as actually anchoring the mind. And so when we have your blood deficient, we may have like, jitteriness. We don't like being alone. We're not able to be settled. So blood is more heavy, substantial. And so when we have very little of it, we kind of feel floaty and lightheaded. That's where the dizziness kind of comes in, things like that. So I hope that kind of makes sense.
Definitely.
Okay, let's continue on and hope.
What's going on? No. Did we lose? We lost Jennifer. Hold on. What happened? Where did she go?
Okay, let's go back. Hopefully I have on, I'm doing
all right.
Okay, we are back. There. Okay, so let's go back to just talking about like the spiritual aspects of the symptoms. I was saying before how you may experience some dull eyes, delusions, lack of manifestation of the heart's desire, unease when alone. And I was making that connection with one of the functions of the blood, which is anchoring the mind. So if there's very little blood, if you have blood deficiency, little blood, then your mind is not able to be anchored. So that means that you may feel uneasiness, you may feel jitteriness. That's where the anxiety comes in. That's where the depression comes in. You may feel like dizzy because you're like the top of your head feels like it's floating, you know, having that kind of feeling is one of the symptoms of blood deficiency as well. And if you have questions, more questions about that, there's more to it than that, but we'll just leave it there. Let's now talk about building blood and supporting the spleen, supporting the kidneys and the liver with foods. So here are some really great blood building foods. For Chinese nutrition therapy, the foods may have, well, foods do have, every food has a temperature, has a taste, and so you can help to balance the blood deficiency and move it into the right direction with foods that are sweet, sour, and a little salty.
Okay.
So here are, here's a table here, and I've organized it to where on the left side you'll see more hot foods, warming foods, and then on the right side you'll see more cooling foods. And I organize it as well in columns here for meat, fish, nuts and seeds, grains, vegetables, fruits. Fruits in general are more cooling and more cold. And I would like to make this little caveat here that, or a side note, I guess, really about cooling foods and dampness, because dampness is another, I guess you can consider it a pathology in Chinese medicine. And so eating a lot of sweets, sugary foods can cause dampness. And then when you add fruit on top of that, or you add sweets on top of that, even natural sweets, it can cause dampness to exacerbate and cause lots of problems, including make blood deficiency worse. That's why I wanted to make that point. And so, of course, fruits are really good to have in your diet. Yes, you want them, but in moderation, especially because most people have dampness in their diet and in their bodies because of the American diet. So I won't read all these, but I would like to point out that here below we have a 3-day meal plan, which includes some of these different foods that you may want to try. So like breakfast, you may want to try an amaranth porridge with apricots and plums, which are good. Spinach and quinoa for breakfast. Azuki beans are really nice. Probably, no, they may or may not be in your regular grocery store. They may find them in like a natural food store like Whole Foods.
Okay.
Yeah. And stop me if you have questions too. Please don't think that I'm just going, but you can interrupt.
Yeah, I've never heard of a zuki bean, so that's new. That's a new bean to me.
Yeah, okay. They're like little greenish brown beans. They're like little small beans, yeah. Cabbage and fennel soup is good for breakfast on day 3. And then for lunch, having some, like, if you're a meat eater, I know for me, I was vegan for like 9 years and just started eating some meat. And in actuality, that's important for blood deficiency because, as we know, a lot of iron is in red meat. And so iron also enhances your blood, or we need iron for our blood. And you may be thinking, okay, this all makes sense when it comes to anemia. Like anemia is something that people experience a lot too if they don't eat meat or if they're not absorbing iron very well. And so that's one reason why I switched over to eating small amounts of meat because I felt like I needed more blood-enriching foods. So beef liver. Some people don't like liver, but
Yeah.
you know, eating liver to support your liver. So, you know, chicken is also good, baked chicken, red cabbage. The red cabbage agua dulce recipe is down here at the bottom. Lamb is really good. Lamb is very hot in Chinese medicine. It's one of the most warm foods. Lamb, you can do lamb burgers. Eating oysters and fish are really good for the kidneys. So different fish and seafood. Steamed spinach is also good. As you know, spinach, cabbage, and beets are like your three great vegetables for blood deficiency. And like buckwheat, buckwheat, amaranth, quinoa, and spelt are really good grains for blood deficiency.
Okay.
Yeah, so then here is the recipe here for the red cabbage agua dulce with dried cherries. Agua, I think, means, gosh, I can't remember what it means, but I know dulce means sweet. So it's like a sweet and sour, I think, mixture.
Okay.
It's kind of like a not necessarily sauerkraut, but like a sweet cabbage dish.
Yeah.
I did make this, so it was really good, actually. And a little word about Minstrel Blood. I don't know how much time. I'm trying to keep track of time as well.
It is 10:33, so you have it is 11:33 where you are.
Okay. Because we have to do the tinctures. I'll leave this for you to read about Minstrel Blood because it's interesting to think about Minstrel Blood versus regular blood. There's a little bit of a difference in Chinese medicine. Okay, let's really quick go through the blood tonic recipe, and then we'll do it in my kitchen. So use some nettle leaf. I have about 1.8 ounces. I measured it last night. So get about 1 ounce of nettle, which is plenty. You need a grain alcohol. I'm using 95% Everclear. I like to use that because it's kind of like, okay, it's like you're 100%, and then you can dilute down from there. A scale, measuring cups, cutting utensils, which you may or may not need, canning jars, labels or scrap paper, a tincture press. I have one, but it's really not that necessary. You can just squeeze it with your hand with some cheesecloth, and then some tincture bottles that you need to, they need to be amber or cobalt so they can last a little bit longer. You don't want to get exposure to light. So we're going to use nettle, but just make a note here that some herbs are not good for tincture because they're using alcohol. So they're not alcohol. The constituents in the herb are actually not alcohol soluble, or they're not really good for alcohol. Marshmallow, flaxseed, mullein, elecampane are examples. So, okay, the first step is basically to calculate all your measurements. Now, I'm giving you two different ways to calculate the measurements here using ratio, which I don't really do it that way, but some people may lean more towards that. I do it using like milliliters since I have more of a biology background, so I understand like mils. Ounces when it comes to measuring things. So we're going to do this calculation, and hopefully it's not too, I try to make it clear. And then after that, basically you just, just put everything into the jar and, here it is. So that's step 2. Place herbs in the jar with the alcohol, label it, and you're going to store it away for 6 to 8 weeks and shake it every 1 or 2 weeks or so, whenever you remember. It's really not even that big of a deal. And then after those 8 weeks, you can strain it using the tincture press if you can get one, or with the muslin cloth, and then put it in your bottles that you have.
Okay. Where would one find a tincture press? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I can show you. Over to hopefully the internet will last. Let me take my phone. Tincture press is basically, I think I got mine off of eBay.
Okay.
And it's basically where you can put the tincture in like a container like this.
Okay.
And there's this huge like press thing on there. So you would put the bottle in, you put the bottle under here. I can do it with holding this up. Let me do this. Like that. So it'd be like this. And you have your press piece that goes in here. And basically, once the herbs are in here, the liquid's in here as well, all the herbs and liquids. It's called a minstrel. It's called minstrel. And then you basically screw this down, all the way down, to press the herb all the way down and get all the menstruum, all the liquid menstruum off of the herbs. So it's like a very good way to get the last little drop of the medicine from the herb leaf or roots or whatever you're using. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, let's do this. So I've got my nettle here. I hope you can see everything. I'll just keep it like that. Okay, so we have our nettle leaf. I'm gonna measure this out. 4 ounces. I have all these jars here, so I wanted to show you different jars. Okay, so I'm gonna tear my scale. Okay, I'm gonna use a little cup here to put on there to put the nettle leaf in. Tearing the scale, and I'll measure out 1 ounce or so, which is probably about half of this. So I think this is about 1. Yeah, that's only 0.4. So I'm gonna put my nettle, I'm gonna make it in this larger jar. I think this is about 800 mils. Mils. So I'm gonna start putting that in here. So that was 0.4. It should stay teared, but sometimes it doesn't. Cheap scale. Okay. So that's about half, so that's 0.9. Just 9, and then we'll go to 1. 1 more ounce. Yeah, a little bit extra in there. Okay. So that's about 1 ounce, which is a lot of herbs. I mean, a lot of leaves. Almost filled up the whole thing, halfway. Okay, so I'm going to put that in there. And now I'm going to make my mixture here. So I'm going to start with the calculations that we have. Oh, you know what? Let me stop sharing the screen so you can actually see the whole. So now you can see the whole.
Yeah.
Okay, that's better probably. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm just measuring out everything. So now I have Everclear here, and I'm going to get some water. So to do the measurements, and I have this printed out so it's easier for me as well. To do the measurements, we're going to do, so first you have to measure your alcohol concentration. So I'm doing, so you want to take your desired alcohol concentration, which I make most of my tinctures around 40 to 60%.
Okay.
And so I want to just say we're going to do the 40%. Divided by the alcohol concentration of the stock, which is your Everclear, which is, this is 95%, right?
Okay.
And then multiply by 100. So it's 40 divided by 95 times 100 equals 42.1, or we'll just round it to 42%. Okay. So then we have to do our water, how much water we need. So for the total solvent, which is what we just calculated, I'm sorry, total solvent is 100%. So we want 100%, like that's how much we need, a full thing, minus the alcohol percent that we just calculated, which was the 42, equals how much water we need. So 100 minus 42% equals 58% water. So basically we're doing a 42 to 58 ratio of alcohol to water, but we're in percentages. So we need to convert the percentage then to milliliters. Okay. So to do that, we're going to take our total volume of tincture minus the alcohol volume, and that will equal the water. So then we'll do, I'm going to make a 500 mil, because I think this is about 800. So I want to make 500 mils tincture amount, which is a lot. So you don't have to do that. You can do 250. You can make them in small jars if you want to. So to do 500 mils, you'll need to multiply 500 times 0.42, which was our alcohol concentration. And that's going to be 210 milliliters of alcohol. Now, I hope that I have that much. I think I do, because you can take, if you have these measuring cups, sometimes they have, I don't know if you can see that, they have how many mils are on the measuring cups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you're not having to deal with like a measuring graduated cylinder. So this 1 cup is 240 mils. And so I
Okay.
need 210. So basically I'll do, to be exact, you can do exact or you can just do 240. It wouldn't make a big difference between that. 210 and 240 is not that much of a difference. So I'll do 1 cup of Everclear. And then to know how much water, I wanted 500 mils minus 210 mils, or minus 1 cup, equals 290. So I'll do a little bit over a cup of water.
Okay.
So it comes down to basically a cup and a cup. Okay, so I'm gonna now measure my Everclear. So I'm putting 1 cup of Everclear. I'll do a little bit less than 1 cup and hope it won't spill anything. You know what? I actually have a funnel, which may come in handy as well. So funnel, you can see that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So funnel, pouring in the Everclear. You want to make sure that your herbs are completely covered by the liquid. Okay, so we're almost there. So what we may have to do is make another full batch.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we're really doing is making sure that it's at the right concentration. So the volume doesn't really matter that much, right?
Okay.
I mean, so it just needs to be covered completely. Like this is just about covered. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
It's just about covered. So I'm actually going to make another batch and cover it completely. So I'm just going to do 1 more cup and 1 more cup if I have enough. Everclear is kind of expensive, so yeah, almost at a cup. And that's probably the 240 that I needed anyway, the 210 that I needed anyway. So we're doing 1 more thing of Everclear. And we may get 1 more cup of water in there.
So how many bottles, like tincture bottles, do you think this would?
This would probably make like 10 bottles. I mean, it's going to make a lot or more. And what I wanted to show you as well, you can get different sizes of the tincture bottles. So you can do, like, this is a 4-ounce bottle, or you can do a 2-ounce bottle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they come in a little bit bigger than the 4-ounce as well. So you could do different sizes, so you're not having to pour out like 30 bottles. But this I mean, I wanted to make a lot, but you definitely don't have to do this much. You can work with 100 mil, work with 250. I do like to use, this has actual graduated cylinder on it, so you can measure out, your mils or cups, however you want to do.
Okay.
And using like old jars, you can do these. You can make these in old jars because they already have like the mils and whatever on here. So you can just say, okay, I'm gonna use that number and just make my tincture in this jar. Yeah, so those are some tips on what to do. Oh, we can use it. You can make them. You can have these jars, as long as they're like amber.
Mm-hmm.
They'll work well. Because you don't want it to be broken down by the light. A thing about alcohol tinctures, the water, so some of the constituents in the plant are soluble in water, and some of them are soluble in alcohol. So that's why you don't just use alcohol, obviously you use some water as well, because you want to pull out the constituents in the liquid that may be soluble in water as well. So yeah. And once you're done, oh wait, here's the top. What you can do as well with this cheesecloth, I went ahead and put it on the list of things that you need, because you can cover your jar and then put your top on it. Some people say that there's some chemicals from the tops that may leach into the alcohol because the alcohol is so strong. We dilute it down, but just to help prevent some of that, you can add like wax paper or a cheesecloth like this on top of that.
Okay.
And then, so just cover that and shake it up. And I like to use the mason jar tops. I mean, these tops, the tops that can go on a regular jar will work fine too, but the mason jar tops are obviously a little bit tighter, so your tincture won't spill out as easy.
Okay.
That's the nettle tincture. Wow, I'm so glad I made this.
So how long would you store it?
Yeah, so you would store it for 6 to 8 weeks. I'll put it in the cabinet. And every time you open the cabinet, give it a little shake, and then just put it back in there. So make sure you label it, which I didn't bring any labels to actually do that part, but label it with the date so you'll know, okay, it's been about 6 weeks. Take it out, strain it. You could even use the cheesecloth to strain it into, I would strain it into another jar first. So then it can actually be stored in that jar, and then you can pour a little bit into a smaller one and then use that throughout the day. You can take this with you, if you go, going to work or whatever. So you can have it like this and then have the rest of it stored in this. And now, what was that?
When you're storing it for the 6 to 8 weeks, is there a certain temperature you should try to keep it at?
Yeah, you don't want it to be too hot. So keeping it cool is best. I mean, in your kitchen cabinet would be probably beneficial, like any pantry type area, and keeping it cool. You don't want it to be on the table in sunlight. Yeah, so keeping it out of the light is important. Keeping all your herbs really out of the light is really important. So when you get your herbs like this, don't keep them like this. Put them in some type of dark bag. I like these that I got off of Etsy, I think, because they have they have a little lining in them, so they're not leaching in, there's no plastic or whatever leaching into it. But don't keep them in a plastic bag, unfortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, dark bag is important. Dark for herbs, so they're not being bleached by the sun or by the light, artificial light. Another point I wanted to make, I can't remember what it was. Oh, I do have some already made up that I've had for a while. I'll grab right quick. Yeah, so this is licorice that I made back in April, so April 19th. So yeah, I probably should think about doing that one, taking that one out, so you can see how the I wish I should have done it before and after, but how the liquid is totally different color now. So this was, if it settles down, you'll see that it'll be very clear. So when you start to see the green color change in the liquid, then it's actually working and it's good. So this is the first one. Yeah, so I just had it in my cabinet, until it's ready to go.
How do you know if a tincture is not good or has gone bad, or if you didn't do it right? What's the signs?
I don't think you can mess it up, because the alcohol is preserving it. I mean, especially if you're using 95%, there's no way anything's gonna grow in this. If you're using, and another point, good point. If you want to use a regular vodka that's 40% alcohol, you wouldn't want to dilute it because it's already 60% water. So it's 40% alcohol, 60% water. So you can just use that straight. So you don't have to do all those calculations. You can just put your herbs in here, fill up your vodka that's 40% to cover the herbs, and then store it, and it's done. I wanted to do the calculation just to show you that you can, if you have this on hand, you can kind of control your percentages. Some herbs may need more alcohol to pull out the constituents you want. Some may need less. So you can do that. You have the power to do that. You don't have to just stick with the 40. You can do 60. I wouldn't go above 60 or 70%. alcohol, just because you may be pulling out things you don't want. But yeah, so you can control it and do it yourself too. The power for that. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's it.
Do you have any closing thoughts before we stop the recording?
Gosh, I mean, there's just so much to like, and I wanted to show you this, my burdock too. This is what I was gonna do. Burdock powder that I made. This is burdock from the grocery store. And you probably have seen like those burdock roots that are pretty long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the grocery store. So you can buy those, and if you have a dehydrator, or you can put them outside and let them dry. But a dehydrator, you can dry them down and then grind them up in a blender or Vitamix or something, and use this in your cooking, or you can put it into soups, or you can make a tincture out of it too. So you can add, like for this, when it's broken down like this, I would do like a 40%. It's already broken down. The constituents will probably be pulled out very easily with the alcohol. So I would do a 40% vodka, and I would just fill this up with that. So you could do that as well. Yeah, so you can take your foods and make tinctures with them. You can do dandelion leaves and make a dandelion tincture, or dandelion outside, in the yard. You can pull the roots up. The whole plant can be used for medicine. So you can just put the whole plant, chop it up, and use that as a tincture as well. So it's a lot of things that you can do, and don't be afraid to get your hands dirty and make your own medicine. So yeah.
Okay. Well.